It's not
I
showing.
guarantee
Oh,
you.
now it is. Yes. Thank you, Rafa, for letting us know that it wasn't on.
And we'll start again.
Yes. So, hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And chaos in LA, as well as Greta Thunberg.
Yes, her boat got stopped. Her whole activism boat got stopped. Yes.
We'll bury the chaos in LA because you just covered it for almost an hour. It did pretty good numbers for our streams.
Yes.
So a lot of people in Mexico are interested in it. Yeah,
so
which is good.
You. And everybody that's coming over from the Spanish live, thank you so much. You got spat over here. As I say, Rafa says, hello, I was spitted from the other live. And then thank you for letting us know about the audio issues. Hopefully it all works now. But thank you to everybody that's here from that live.
Yeah.
And we will talk about what's happening in LA, but we'll wait a little bit so YouTube doesn't get mad at us.
And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If we can get this channel monetized, that really helps us out a lot because our other channel is monetized. So.
And since we're streaming from Mexico and everything goes out from Mexico, we're trying to work on a solution from it. But for now, all of our English stuff gets served to a Spanish-speaking audience that usually is not super interested in it, but thank you to the ones that are here.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get right into it. Let's go with Greta Thunberg first. She gets arrested, detained, something like that. You read the article. I wasn't sure. I kept seeing her pop up on X. So why don't we read this now?
Yeah. So this is from Reuters. Israeli forces seize Gaza aid boat carrying Greta Thunberg. Israeli naval forces boarded and seized a charity vessel carrying Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, which had tried to break the naval blockade on the Gaza Strip on Monday. The British-flagged yacht Madeleine, which is operated by the pro-Palestinian Freedom Flotilla Coalition, has aimed to deliver a symbolic amount of aid to Gaza later on Monday and raise international awareness about the humanitarian crisis there.
And this was a publicity stunt by Greta Thunberg. She had been planning this for a long time. She kept talking about it over and over and over, hyping it up, got on the boat, kept streaming about it, stuff like that, put out an emergency tweet, said, if you get this message, this means my boat's been detained. So this is to bring eyeballs on the plight in Gaza, I guess. So it's working what she's doing, but like, come on now.
Yes, and there was also, I believe, a Mexican on board, a Mexican activist as well, and a bunch of other activists that were there. But yes, so they got
Well, they're lucky
stopped.
they didn't get blown up out of the water, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was pretty brazen to go there.
Yeah,
and
but
that was a publicity stunt.
But I also think she kept tweeting about it, so the Israeli government would know it's them. They knew there was a chance that boat could have something bad could have happened to it. Mm-hmm. So the fact that she kind of prepped them, I wouldn't even be surprised if somebody made a call, kind of making the Israeli government aware of the boat was coming into their waters.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was all over the place ever since she planned on boarding and even before she made a speech. So,
yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, she is just a young girl being used by the powers that be to prove their political points.
Yeah, I was talking to another protester once upon a time this was years ago, about something they were doing. I said, well, what happens when that's over? What are you gonna protest then? They go, oh, it's not gonna be over. It's never gonna be over. And that's the thing. Climate change, the narrative has kind of shifted on climate change, and there's two sides to the story now, and her original arguments are kind of getting burned out. She's trying to find a new cause.
Trying to pivot.
Trying to stay relevant.
Yes. Because she's also useful, because she's like a younger girl, and she will kind of always, I believe, look like a little girl. Mm-hmm. But they started her out when she was very young with the whole climate activism, and now that's not turning out to be super profitable right now. At the moment, she's been pivoting towards this cause and a bunch of other causes as well. She was very outspoken during BLM.
Well, she has a bunch of handlers. When she came to Canada specifically, I believe it was somewhere in Alberta, there was quite a big scandal. Rebel News uncovered about her driving gas-powered cars, all the wrappers and plastic stuff in the back of her car. And every time they try to interview her, the amount of handlers around her and things like this, and they had hidden video coverage of her talking about some things, and it almost seems like she's just their spokesman at this point, and she's making a lot of money for it. They uncovered the money trail as well. So that being said, I guess she is what she is. Nobody's really impressed with her anymore.
No.
She had that initial speech when she was really young, and that's what kind of did it for her. You can only go on that one statement for so long.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into the next article here, and it's Claudia Sheinbaum is now calling for a protest in the United States.
Well, so funnily enough, of course, from mainstream media, I couldn't really find her original speech. I just played it in my Spanish channel.
Yep.
But initially, she had come out, as well as a bunch of the other people in the Mexican government, against the remittances tax, so the money that the Mexicans living in the U.S. sent back to Mexico. The U.S. Had planned to impose a tax on it, 3%, then they lowered it to 5%, then they lowered it to 3%, and she had come out very strongly against that, even though she didn't try to improve the conditions here, so that money doesn't need to be sent over. But for initially, during that speech, she also said, if you need to, go out, protest, make your voices heard, etc. And then the protests started happening in LA, and now she came out, and this is the one article I could find saying that Mexican president condemns violence in Los Angeles protests.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, she's working very closely with Trump, and Trump himself isn't saying it, and she herself isn't saying it, but all the sub-characters in the Trump administration, who I follow very closely because I gather news on a daily basis, are saying nothing but good things about Sheinbaum and their administration and how they're helping behind the scenes, how they're helping shut the border. So she's trying to put this front on like she's not helping the United States. Now, when she came out and said people need to protest in the United States, I'm almost willing to think this is a narrative Trump wants. Trump is winning this narrative war when it comes to illegal migrants in the country and deportations. He's deporting primarily criminals at the moment, having these violent protests in the streets, the burning of cars. There was a mall that began to burn down the other day. I've been all over this because I used to live in LA. I know all the places in LA that are being filmed. It just fascinates me because I've been in a lot of these riots as well. There's massive riots always in LA every few years. So for this particular case, they're calling this the Mexican insurrection. If you're looking at American social media, the American people have really turned against illegal mass immigration. They're completely for legal immigration, and they have the most legal immigration, but they're done with it. Now, Trump had run on this, and he won the majority of the votes, but the moderates that are left that were kind of on the fence about illegal immigration, maybe we should just let them come in, maybe we should just continue it, are now completely turning against it because of the amount of violence, not just one day, but day after day after day after day. These protests are actually scheduled to ramp up. Independent organizations that are organizing protests are planning bigger and bigger protests as the week goes on. I would expect Friday and Saturday this week coming up in LA, the protests will be big. They also have nationwide ICE protests that are supposed to ramp up as ICE goes into different communities. So as this happens, Trump is a master at manipulating the narrative here, and I think that it's only going to shift more and more and more to him.
Yes, and also, I mean, the ones that were also master manipulators of the narrative, hold on, where am I? The ones that were also master manipulators of the narrative for the longest time are seeing their efforts be not as fruitful as before, be it LA Mayor Karen Bass, who, I mean, I've done a report on her in Spanish. She's joined with a lot of communistic groups and has done a lot of activism of the sort. Maxine Waters just sounds insane now, saying that it's all peaceful, nothing's happening. So because there are people on the streets recording everything that's happened, also the narrative that it's just like recently arrived or it's all Mexican migrants that are just demanding to be treated respectfully, that's also falling out the wayside because they keep finding a lot of these organizations that organize these sort of protests also involved in this one. And even on the street journalists and independent journalists are starting to notice the same faces and the same tactics as well being used, be it the pallets of bricks being found 2 to 3 days before all these big protests start, nowhere near anywhere construction, or like the tactics of, for example, throwing things at police in a certain way. They're all been recognized and used in past protests, be it pro-Palestine, be it BLM, pro-abortion, etc. So a lot of these actors are the same ones over and over again.
And they're saying these are mostly peaceful protests, everything from the governor to the mayor. But the big scandal of that is the LAPD. Now, the LAPD comes out with a statement like this. This is the brass of the LAPD. This is the higher ups. These are political appointments. These are political positions. Now, when they come out with like statements from that, the cops on the ground know that's not the truth.
Yes.
They're not saying the same thing. We can see what they see. They're on the front lines, but it must feel like a betrayal when their leadership's coming out and saying these are peaceful protests when we're seeing bottles being thrown, concrete being thrown. Concrete was being thrown on LAPD officers' head from an overpass, and they were trapped under the overpass. These are extremely violent protests, and there are multiple protests going on all over the city. Today is Monday. A lot of people are going back to work. The protest is a little bit more calm today, but as the week goes on, it's going to amp up, especially around Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm expecting more and more violence, but Trump is rolling more and more military into the city. Now he's rolling them in with non-military force just to protect the police officers and things that are there who are also using non-lethal force. You'll see they'll have weapons and guns. All the guns they have are, all the GUNs are non-lethal, meaning they're either rubber bullets, pepper bullets, or tear gas. And the ground is absolutely littered with non-lethal means of enforcement.
Yes, and I spoke about this in Spanish, but what Trump has deployed as of right now, of course, this could change, but the narrative, at least on the left or the progressives, are saying, oh, he's sending in the military against the protesters. No, it has been made very clear that the forces that he's deploying to Los Angeles, be it National Guard or the Marines, are there to protect infrastructure and to protect the officers on the ground, but they're not to use any force, and they're not there to keep the peace. The LAPD and the Sheriff's Department are still the ones that are in control of keeping the peace, as they call it.
This is a long-term plan for Trump. He ran on this. He's now implementing the plan. He is strategically going into LA because he knew there would be riots and protests, and this would drive the American public to his side, number one. So he's very conscious of the narrative, and he needs to win this first narrative war. And the way he is going to do that is by focusing on criminals. He's not rounding up everybody. The liberal media is trying to say he is, but they don't have any evidence of that. And day by day, he's releasing the names and faces and the charges of the people they are arresting, why they're going after them, what warrants they have. He's very clear in what he's doing because he knows if he can win this narrative war, which he is because the mainstream media is already saying these are peaceful protests. I've been watching for 7 hours today. These are not peaceful protests. I mean, I'll tune in and out throughout the day to see if they're ramping up. Even on a non-active day like today, where the protests are limited, they're still violent. There's still fires being made. There's still rocks being thrown at cops, things like this.
And again, a lot of these agitators are seen doing the same things, and even the same people that they're seeing on the ground. All of these independent journalists are starting to recognize them. Also, for example, the National Lawyers Guild is there, who are these far leftist lawyers that go to these protests, sometimes even agitate themselves, and then are there as lawful witnesses when the protesters or whoever's doing crimes get arrested, and then they can say, oh, there was police violence against this person, so let them go.
Well,
so that's why they're there. They wear green hats. So if you see footage of them and they're wearing green hats, that's who they are. There's others with several symbols or markings or wearing things that show that they're part of other organizations that are also known to agitate during protests.
And we were talking to a couple liberals this weekend, and they said, we don't agree with this, not at all. And we're trying to explain, well, America takes the most amount of legal immigrants and illegal immigrants. Now, they need to get rid of anybody that has a criminal record that came in illegally. And by doing so, it's a narrative. I was trying to explain them, this is a narrative war. I agree with what's going on. They didn't agree. I said, you're losing the narrative war right now when you resort to violence and you wave Mexican flags in the street in the United States. This turns the general American public against the protesters, which is going to make the plight of the actual illegal immigrants that are in the country really bad. Why do I say this? Because the next step is when the whole nation sees these riots going on and the massive amount of violence that's happening day after day after day, it's no longer the government versus the illegal migrants, U.S. citizens are going to start calling ICE and immigration for people that are in the country illegally because they're going to want them out because the narrative is shifting.
And that also kind of goes with what I spoke about in Spanish, where a lot of these, and again, it's hard for an English-only speaking audience or somebody that can't recognize, for example, Spanish accents from several different places, to understand that a lot of the ones that are yelling on bullhorns or just talking around during these protests have very heavy American accents when they speak in Spanish. So is it actually the real migrants from Mexico, South America that are there protesting, or is it these paid agitators, the paid protesters, and also maybe even the kids that got all the opportunities from their parents migrating to the States looking for more opportunities that are now rebelling against the U.S. because that's very fun to do, apparently.
Well, and maybe we should explain a little bit. We were originally from Vancouver, Canada. You're from Mexico originally,
Yes.
But we're living in Canada for 13 years. We moved back to Mexico City, so we broadcast from Mexico City every day. I used to live in LA for a long period of time as well. So you're actually from Mexico. You speak perfect Spanish.
It's my first language. Yes.
So
Yes, that's how I can understand maybe what a lot of people aren't seeing when they're calling. And it's not that it bothers me, because again, I do believe that entering a country illegally itself is a crime if it's considered so in that country, which in every single country in the world it is to a certain extent. I mean, nobody lets you just walk in, no country in the world. But
well, some do now.
some don't enforce their own laws, which is
Yeah.
very different, but they have the laws if they wanted to enforce them, which is what the States now is doing, even though they still allow the most number of legal and illegal immigrants in. A lot of these people, what a lot of people speaking out against are saying, oh, it's the Mexicans or it's a Mexican insurrection, can't really discern, in my opinion, is that a lot of the people on the ground that I've been watching on these like live streams of people that are there on the ground just filming, when you hear them either speak Spanish or speaking in English, it becomes very clear that it's not, new migrants that are there protesting for their own rights. It's people that are using them to further cause chaos and to, do.
And let's
chaos
talk
in LA.
about let's talk about a couple other perspectives of this. We're going to go kind of in depth on this today, but Trump isn't saying we're going to deport you back to your country. Exactly the opposite. He's sending ICE out there for the criminals primarily, but he's saying if you're in this country illegally, we're no longer welcome here. You need to either go back to your home country, or he's given the secondary option. You can turn yourself in at an airport. They will give you an airline ticket to any country that will accept you, and many countries will accept refugees right off the bat, like Canada, like a lot of EU countries right now. But he's saying America is no longer that country. With that plane ticket, he's also going to give them $1,000. So,
Which, I mean, it's less than, I think, what Norway or one of those Nordic countries was offering, But
if ICE comes to get you and you're deported, you're not going to get any of that. You're going to if you're in the United States right now, a very similar country is Canada. They will welcome if you try to claim refugee status at the airport.
Yes.
So they do have that option. They have the option of going back to their home country or any other country. We know a lot of countries in the EU are saying that they don't want immigrants, but they're still accepting them on a daily basis.
Yes, and also it is understandable that a lot of people have families there that have been in the States for 20, 30 years, built a life, etc., maybe entered illegally, but now they've, regularized themselves in a way within American society. I mean, them, I think it's less of an issue, but right now, and you can go into the U.S. government websites, you can hear interviews, you can even look at them do some of these raids. They are being targeted towards people that have criminal records within the United States that are where they're illegally, and they either never fulfilled their sentences or they re-entered during the Biden era when they were not checking the border crossings. And a lot of these people already had the criminal records that now ICE is looking for them. And the raids that are happening are in places where they know probably
we've
that
kind
these
of covered this.
criminals will be. I know, but I want to leave that very clear because the narrative becomes, oh, poor people, blah,
Okay,
blah, blah.
let's cover other perspectives here.
That's not the narrative. So Walker says, I arrived at the Spanish show just as it was ending. Sorry, I essentially said this for about an hour. That could be interpreted as foreign interference from Mexico to the USA, right?
Yep.
What Sheinbaum was saying, maybe, kind of, I don't know. I don't think they care right now about that, but
But I also think it's helping Trump's narrative. So people, when they're waving Mexican flags in the street in America, saying they want to stay in America, but they're waving other countries' flags,
not the Mexicans.
and they're burning things, they're violent, and then you have foreign leaders saying you need to take to the streets and protest. It's really turning the American public on the illegal immigrant population. So I don't think he minds.
No, but it doesn't help the cause of the actual migrants that they're trying to help. It's the same as when they start waving Palestinian flags or Ukrainian flags. They just go buy a flag on Amazon and start waving it. It's not their actual flag, whatever. Walker says that really always happens at protests, but now that everyone has cameras, it makes the left-wing narrative fall apart. Not like before when only they and their journalists have the information monopoly. Exactly, and we've seen live, like we've been tracking these protests live, kind of as we did during the BLM era as well. Through independent journalists, and I also wanted to show a few of the independent journalists.
Let's talk about this for a quick second before you do go into this. And you're right about the BLM protests. After those BLM protests that did over $16 billion in damage in the United States, were in multiple cities all around. Entire cities were burnt down. Low-income districts were completely burned down, so it hurt the people that were protesting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the BLM movement completely collapsed after the violence.
Yes.
We've seen that. And then what happened on January 6th, even though I agreed with those protesters, that really hurt the cause long term because they resorted to violence. Every time these protest movements turn to violence, it turns against the movement itself. This particular protest movement is resorting to violence almost right off the bat, and it's going to backfire on the actual illegal immigrants they're trying to protect.
And the legal ones too. Like it's
Yeah.
going to have repercussions against everyone. But if you do want to watch, you can't even see his name. But if you do want to find some independent journalists that are on the ground, aside from, as I said in Spanish, you can always Google LA Riots live or LA Riots right now, and you can see live streams happening on the ground of people there, be it traditional mainstream media or independent journalists, but some that cover with a little bit more of not commentary, but they at least put this important parts out is Brendan Guggenschwager or BG on the Scene. I'm sure you've seen some of his videos, but he's reporting 30 minutes ago, 1 hour ago, things that are happening on the ground, at least where he is at. Flashbangs deployed to try to disperse crowd here in LA. 1 hour ago, chants of peaceful protest from the crowd here in LA.
Okay,
And another one, hold on, I have a few I wanted to show. Anthony Cabasa is another journalist that lives in Los Angeles. He's been doing interviews today about what he has seen, which is where I got a lot of the information regarding the protesters that he'd identified at other protests as well. So it's people that are paid usually to go to protests and cause chaos. But again, he shows a lot of right now, like what's happening right now, multiple injured. He covers a protest. Here's where you can kind of hear people speaking in Spanish without actually speaking in Spanish. And that was it. Oh, there was one other one. Oh, Frontlines as well. Frontlines from TPUSA also has people live covering for that.
Okay, and let's just talk about what's going to happen in the EU, Canada, and Australia. The people have turned against the mass immigration in these other countries, and the government themselves in certain countries are having to now say they're against mass immigration. They're saying it vocally, but behind the scenes, they're still allowing massive amounts of immigrants in because their GDP and their false economy will collapse as soon as they stop allowing these immigrants into the country. So that being said, none of these countries are actually deporting immigrants or stopping them from coming in other than Donald Trump in the United States. If this works, and the economy actually gets better, the life gets better for the actual citizens and the legal immigrants that are in the countries, it's going to put all these other countries in a situation where it's going to pit the citizens against their governments because the governments are lying to their citizens' face and refusing to put the citizens of their own countries first. And right now, it doesn't really matter because no country has actually stopped the immigration. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump is attempting to after he does, and he does make the mass deportations. If the life standard and the standard of the country comes up, citizens in other countries are going to be wanting the same thing to happen and saying, why are you lying to our face?
And I don't think, I mean, he might stop it mostly, but it'll always be fully impossible to fully get rid of everything. And also, like, we have to see what the plan is moving forward regarding immigration.
Let's stop here. Okay, Donald Trump has actually deported the least amount of immigrants.
Yes.
It's made to seem like it's the most, but I got the statistics the other day. Now I'm trying to remember them off the top of my head, but I believe it was Bill Clinton was 12.3 million. After Bill Clinton, it was George Bush. George Bush did 10 million. Then it was Barack Obama after him. Barack Obama did 5.3 million. And now Trump in this second term, he's done 100,000. I didn't get the numbers for his first term, but he's done the least amount from all these other presidents. So that being said, it's why are they so angry at Trump? It's because as they deported, as like Bill Clinton deported 12 million people and George Bush deported 10 million. They were deporting millions of people every year, but they were allowing millions more new ones back into the country. Donald Trump has completely shut down the border and stopped illegal immigration from coming into the country. So everybody he's now deporting is a net positive to getting back to normal numbers.
So yeah, I found the numbers. So Trump's first term, 1.5 million. Obama administration, which was 2 terms, 5.2. Bush administration, 10.3 million. And Clinton administration, 12.2 million as well, 2 terms.
And these are huge numbers because none of those other 3 presidents, and this came up when I was researching these numbers, not one of those other presidents that deported 10 times the amount as Trump had a court injunction against them. They had zero court injunctions. Everybody was fine with them deporting 10 million illegal immigrants every year.
And it also wasn't this...
Let me finish here. But Donald Trump already in this term has 30 court injunctions against his deportations of criminal migrants. Mm-hmm. So,
and he has been, and they are trying and have been able to prove in a lot of cases that like the records of these migrants and who specifically they were deporting and who they were looking for during these raids, that yes, maybe also they ended up finding out a bunch of other people that also probably should have been deported, but they're being very specific and targeted with where they're going and where they're doing these raids. And it's the mass hysteria and the hysteria by Democrats and by progressives and by the left and by traditional media that are making everybody and making it seem like he's just indiscriminately going after everybody.
Well, let's maybe give a first-hand account here. Like a lot of people are probably hearing that Donald Trump's not allowing any legal immigrants into the country. This is false. America still allows the most legal immigrants. We have a friend that's from Mexico that is now going to go to school in Chicago next week. He's going there. He's already been accepted. His visas, everything is accepted. He's allowed into the country. He's allowed to not only go to school there, but he's allowed to work there 3 years after that. And he's gotten approved for that. And I know multiple people right now that are currently immigrating from Canada that are from other countries in the world, and they're going to the United States. Same thing with a lot of Mexicans going to school in the United States and things like this.
Yeah. So a lot of that hasn't been stopped, but because they focus on the few cases where there have been issues and then they blow it up into this huge thing, they are able to make it seem like it's for everybody, and it's the worst it's ever been.
Yeah, and they're directly lying. We show that with the mainstream media saying these are peaceful protests. These are anything but peaceful protests. I've been watching them 7 hours a day, off and on. And on Friday, Saturday, I was literally watching them for 4 or 5 hours straight. And the amount of violence that is going on is crazy. Yeah, could there be more? Yeah, definitely. But it's looking like a third world country in LA right now. Mm-hmm. So.
And again, it's not helping anybody. And in my opinion, at least I'll say it this way, it's mainly not actual Mexicans doing it. It's agitators, paid protesters, and people that just want the chaos. And that's what they believe their country should look like. And they're using the Mexican flag to make a point, but same as they use the Ukrainian one, the Palestinian one, the pro-abortion one, the feminist one, all the other causes they support because it's the same people going to them.
Well, and it's not only these activists that are using the plight of the illegal immigrants in the country, it's the politicians. The Democrat politicians are now using the illegal migrant population rather than having the illegal migrant population use the politicians. What do I mean by that? In the 1980s, Ronald Reagan was in office in the States, and he gave mass amnesty to anybody that hadn't committed crimes that were illegal immigrants at the time. And it was a very successful program. It actually helped the United States out. At the time, there was a lot of pressure put by activist groups and illegal migrant groups on the politicians that sided with them, who were the Democratic Party at the time, and they managed to say, well, why don't we negotiate and people that are actually paying taxes, that have actually been in the country for more than 5 or 10 years, that are good citizens, can we give them amnesty? And they were able to put enough pressure on the president politically in constructive ways to actually give mass citizenship to millions of immigrants at the time. Now, they need to do something similar now, but they can't, because the activists are now using the illegal migrants for their means. The Democratic politicians are now using the illegal migrants for their means. Rather than actually help them, they're hurting their cause. Like I said earlier, fellow Americans are turning on these illegal migrants after they're seeing this violence. The next step is American citizens are going to be calling ICE on people that they believe are illegal, because the narrative has now shifted with the amount of violence that's happening in the LA protests.
And quickly. So Walker says Clinton's deportations caused the gang disaster here in El Salvador, I'm guessing, and the U.S. itself did not allow El Salvador to act as it should for human rights.
Okay, and let's go back to those stats really quick.
Oh, hold on. I gotta find it.
Because I know all these presidents very well. I want you to bring the stats up real quick.
I'm looking over there.
Okay, so we have Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, until I looked at these stats, I didn't think he deported hardly anybody. He has a great reputation when he did the deportations, and now nobody talks about the 12.2 million deportations. He was the most of any modern president to do these deportations. Now, Obama actually, they gave him a hard time. Obama's nickname was the Deporter and King. So they really, the liberal media actually went after Obama, saying he was deporting millions and millions of people, but they never talked about Clinton. And then when it comes to Trump, he did the least of everybody, but Obama did the second least. And it's this entitlement that these liberal politicians, the liberal media, thinks that they demonize these people, but they have false statistics.
Or they don't show the statistics.
Yeah.
I mean, that too, because again, you didn't even know about the numbers.
I didn't know about those numbers until I looked at them the other day. And when I quoted those numbers to a couple of liberal friends, I think they were shocked and maybe didn't believe them.
Yeah, that's also true. And Rafa says, I just hope I don't get detained this Sunday at the Philadelphia airport. Again, I think this whole narrative is being like way overblown. And also, if you have a tourist visa, if you're Mexican, and if you have reasons to go and the air, like where you're going to stay, etc., I don't think anything's going to happen to you. But I mean, because it's been so ramped up, people are now like more scared than they should ever be.
And that 1.5 million deportations from Trump, 1.4 million were from his first administration, which was actually the lowest of any modern president. He's only currently deported 100,000. 100,000 is a drop in the barrel. Why so little? Because he wants to make sure he's deporting criminals, because he wants to keep control of the narrative in order to shift the American voters, the moderate American voters, to his side. He needs to make sure they're criminals. He needs to make sure that violence is happening in the streets when he's actually trying to deport criminals, so he can take apart their narrative.
And then Walker says, because the Mexican flag encompasses all immigrants from Central America and Southern Latin America. Exactly. Also, Mexican flag means just everybody that speaks Spanish. And also, he says, I noticed a certain oppression of those people towards immigrants. Yeah.
No, that was Walker. So, no.
Oh, sorry, Walker.
The Mexican flag is not just representing Mexico. It's Mexicans flying the Mexican flag, because on today's protest, they had El Salvadorian flags. There was a ton of El Salvadorian flags. Yes. There was Mexican flags. There
Argentina,
was Venezuela, Argentina. So they're literally flying a United Nations of flags.
Now they found more flags.
Other than the United States. That's one flag they very rarely I see at the protest.
But what he's... Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to explain, I think, what he means, but... Okay.
Oh, yeah. What I was going to say, when the protest first broke out, it was only Mexican flags. Now you're seeing flags from all of South America in these protests.
Which is also like they're listening to what people are saying, the ones that are criticizing these protests, and now they're acting upon it and bringing out all the other flags. But yes, even like at this point, they still did think, and again, I'm going to keep saying, I think it's mostly agitators and paid protesters that are doing this, but they were just like, oh, we'll wave the Mexican flag to represent all of, because all the migrants are Mexicans. It's also a way where you see that they don't understand what actual migration is happening into the States. Also, when Biden let the doors wide open, it wasn't just people from South America, and they're not the ones that people are most concerned about, or Latin America or Hispanic, Spanish-speaking, whatever. They're not the ones that most people were concerned about. It was all of the illegal Chinese immigrants, illegal people from the Middle East, a lot of people that already had terror, or ism charges, or at least being suspected of that, even when they already had been inside the U.S. So it's not just the poor immigrants that went to try to build a life in the States.
The President Trump is most like the modern president Donald Trump is most like is Ronald Reagan. A lot of his policies are very similar. His very slogan of "Make America Great Again" was actually taken from Ronald Reagan and the Republican Party. And I've already said this, they were able to pressure the Republican president, who is very similar to Trump in many ways, to giving mass amnesty to a lot of non-violent immigrants that came in the country illegally. If they would go about this in a different way, they may be able to come to some kind of resolution. But since they're going right to violence, this is not going to end well for the actual illegal immigrants that are in the country now. Okay, we can move on if you want.
Okay, but because do you still want to watch clips that were from before or no?
Yeah, let's watch a few clips. Like, we've talked mainly about this and it's already 10 almost.
Yes.
So we'll watch some clips, then we'll go to RUMBLE. I have a ton of stories for RUMBLE as well.
Do you watch the Tom Holman clip or just what's happening? Or?
Play any clip you want.
Because YouTube is YouTube, if you show too much violence on screen during a live, they get mad at you. So that's why I'm wary of showing too many things from the protests right now, at least.
Okay, play whatever you want. I'm kind of looking what's happening at the protests right now.
Okay. I don't know what to play. Should we just move on?
Play whatever you want.
Okay, well, so this was from, when was this? June 7th, when Tom Homan said that he confirmed the National Guard was being sent to LA by the Trump administration to combat the anti-ICE riots, making LA safer. Mayor Bass should thank us. We are going to bring the National Guard in tonight. They did.
It looks pretty quiet. I'm just checking out the riots live right now, and it looks like it's very quiet tonight. Mm-hmm. It is Monday. It's back to work. They did have protesters surrounding a federal building earlier, but it looked like it was strictly activists there, and it was a much smaller group because a lot of them probably had work. Like I said, it's going to amp up Thursday and Friday. They're going to keep these going. There's already planned protests on social media. That's how people know. And there's nationwide protests set to kind of erupt as well. But later and next week.
Times these elected officials or these non-government organizations, they can't cross the line either. I mean, we got people like, Hakeem Jeffries saying he's going to dox ICE employees. ICE agents out there with masks on. They're wearing masks to protect themselves and their families because they've been doxxed, their family's been doxxed, their life's been threatened, their families have been threatened. I know myself, I had over 1,000 protesters at my house. I expect that as the borders are, but these men and women are putting their lives on line every day. They arrested a lot of bad people yesterday and today.
Okay,
they arrested.
Let's stop it. And this is why the liberal media or the progressive media is never talking about the numbers that are actually being deported, because it's very few and they're very, very targeted. I'm following them raid by raid that they're doing. Right now, there's so many protests. How are they going to do these raids? They're going to very specific locations where they have addresses, where they have information that these criminal illegal migrants are in the countries. Today, they did one in Santa Ana. Yesterday, they did one, a major one in the Fashion District in LA. They're going into very specific buildings where they know these people work and that these people actually have criminal records. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'll be the first to admit it would be concerning if he was just rounding everybody up and the numbers were in the millions, but that's not what's happening here.
Mm-hmm. And also, well, we can see kind of maybe what I mean here. Hold on. With being able to recognize accents thing. So once again, very liberal narrative of no one's illegal on stolen land. Chants in LA this evening. We know this narrative. We've seen it from Canada to the UK to everywhere else. Claims of stolen land, but let's see the accents.
No one's illegal on stolen land.
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 No one can be illegal on a land that was stolen. Remember that. Remember
Okay, that's good. And we had quite a few viewers today on your Spanish live. So we're thinking later in the week, probably around Thursday, because we have appointments the next couple days. And I don't think the protests are really going to ramp up till Thursday and Friday. We may start going on with a live stream of the protest and give some commentary over top of it, just for an hour around probably 11 o'clock at night on the Spanish channel. Just because there seems to be a lot of interest, and around 11 o'clock our time is when things usually start ramping up. We'll go on for an hour probably on Thursday, and then we'll probably do another hour on Friday. If violence does start to ramp up, we will stay on the air. If it doesn't, then you just get an hour of commentary from us on this situation.
And hopefully we don't get in trouble with the YouTube overlords for showing violence.
No, but we should try it because you have fair use when you do commentary over top.
Yes. So Walker says, oh, over there, a Salvadorian flag. Yeah, I feel less oppressed now, just like Guy said. Exactly. Now you can see your flag. Now it's also for you.
Well, it surprised me because the last 2 days that Walker was right, it was all Mexican flags. Mm-hmm. And then I tuned in today and I said, what the hell is this? First, I thought it was rainbow flags because there's all these different flags.
There were some rainbow flags and also some Palestinian flags, which, again, they don't even know what they're supporting.
But you notice the El Salvadorian flags because they're light blue, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was quite a few light blue and white
Well, there's
flags.
Argentina and El Salvador, but they are different. But what I was going to say is...
Show me the El Salvadorian one so I can tell you if
because I saw Argentina too, but okay, let me try to find... So that's El Salvador.
Oh, no, I think it was Argentinian flag.
The Argentina one has like a...
It's light blue, isn't it?
Yeah, and like a sun.
But it's blue on the sides and white in the middle.
Yes-ish.
Bring up the Argentina flag for me.
Fine.
And the audience. The audience is waiting to see.
It's not on the sides. It's not like... It's a strip. Hold on. Where am I? There.
Oh, no. I don't know what flag that was then. It looked like that, but two blue strips on the side.
I'm really bad at flags, so...
yeah.
I'm bad at recognizing flags.
I know the rainbow flag, that's for sure. That was all over there.
Progress Pride one, yeah, that too. And they also had all the buildings lit up with the Pride colors as well, because that's still very important.
It's Pride
in
Month
LA.
right now.
Yeah, that is also kind of funny. But Walker says, dude, but I see those protests are losing strength. I see fewer people at that protest. And they have been dwindling today again. And maybe I just have... I don't know, some sort of PTSD from watching all of the BLM ones because we followed them really closely when we were in Canada and like watching live streams again and seeing what was happening on the ground. And it does, like during the weekdays, less people show up. And then during the second weekends, they get even bigger and bigger because people are able to, more people are able to get to California to go do the stuff that they're being paid to go do.
Well, also, what you're going to see is these protesters are going to die out during the week. The movement and the protesters in the movement are going to start to panic. They're going to try to have a huge turnout probably on Friday and Saturday, and they're going to want to resort to a lot of violence and try to, I'm expecting a lot of arsons and maybe the city to be actually burnt down, a large portion of the city to be burnt down this weekend. So it's going to be interesting on how the military is deployed within the city.
And also, a lot of the things that are being burned down because of the areas of LA it's in, where a lot of migrants have settled from Latin America, Mexico, etc. A lot of those businesses that they're looting, burning down, same as when BLM happened, belong to the people that they claim to be protesting for, and those are the livelihoods of the people that they're supposed to be, be helping out, and they're just looting all their livelihoods and getting rid of all their means to make money.
I'm expecting the rooftop Koreans to be out this weekend, so we'll see. It's a common thing in LA.
Yeah, but okay.
What?
Apparently.
I did want to say, because they are losing control of the narrative, they're going to resort to violence because they have no other action. They're not understanding how to bring the narrative back in their direction. And as narratives start to slip with these protest groups, that's when they resort to more and more and more violence. Mm-hmm. Because they think if they can get eyes on it and get the attention, people will side with them. They're not realizing people have already turned against them.
And Jessica Ramirez says, Guatemala, perhaps, for the flag. Was this the flag you were looking at?
Oh, that was it, yeah.
Okay, Guatemala.
Well, there's a ton of Guatemalan flags today, then.
Okay. Because I did see Argentinian ones as well. Again, not good with flags.
Yeah, that was the
sometimes they
flag.
all melt together.
Good call on
Jessica.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Walker says, to be honest, El Salvador's flag used to be like the U.S. flag, but a very stupid president put that flag up in solidarity with Nicaragua. I do kind of like the Mexican one, though.
What? The Mexican flag?
Yeah, the story. Although they went through a lot of revisions and versions, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's also funny that, and I saw this comment, I believe, on X or on someone else's video that they were streaming, that with the Mexican flag, you're really not supposed to, wear it, which I've seen a lot of people wearing it. There's a lot of rules against touching the floor. The Mexican flag is not supposed to touch the floor. The Mexican flag is not supposed to be worn as an item of clothing. There's so many rules around people that actually would like to respect the flag that it's just funny to watch them use it.
It's the same with the American flag. They have all these rules, but...
And they're burning that one, so...
Oh, yeah. Okay, why don't we head over to RUMBLE?
Sure. So we'll head over to RUMBLE. Again, if you want to comment in Spanish, I can translate it. If it's faster for you to write in Spanish, I can translate it. We'll talk about it in English and then maybe even translate the answer to Spanish if you'd like, because I know that was a question we got a while ago on Rumble from Jessica Ramirez, so feel free to do that. I'll translate, and then we'll see you over on... I just said the word, RUMBLE, and we'll see you tomorrow here on YouTube again.
Oh, and my morning show tomorrow is going to go on probably a little later than usual, so I don't have an exact time, but it won't be on at noon tomorrow.
Yeah, later, or we might just run it all the way to now. We might have to not do it. It depends on how long it takes on our appointment.
Oh, yeah, that appointment's pretty long. It's a 3-hour appointment. Okay, yeah, so maybe no pop culture show tomorrow in the afternoon.
No, but we'll see you back here at 8 p.m., back in the Spanish channel at 8 p.m. Central, and then 9:15 here for English, and more discussions of the craziness in LA. So, and now we'll see you over at RUMBLE. And Jessica Ramirez says, thank you for the Guatemala flag reference. So yes, hold on, I'm quitting YouTube now, and okay.